Well, hello everybody, and welcome to the Guiding Star YouTube channel. Do I have a treat for you today? Today, Ernst Wilhelm, one of my most prominent mentors and inspiration. I've been studying with Ernst's programs for a number of years now, has joined us here on the channel. Ernst Wilhelm, it's so lovely to have you here.
Hey, it's great to meet you and do this with you. So thank you for inviting me.
Thank you, thank you. And Ernst, it's in the afternoon over there where you are in the world and early morning here, so we're really happy to be able to synchronize the times. I was wondering, to kick things off, Ernst, if you might like to share a little bit about how you came to know about astrology, or how you discovered astrology and got into it.
Okay. As a kid, I always had this interest. And like a week after my birthday every year, I would see the sun sign. And in the newspaper I had, on your birthday, they would write a long column on your particular birthday, what it meant for that day. And I missed it every year. And a few days later, I go, oh, I missed it. And the trash would already be gone and I'd miss it. And I kept missing this for years and years. And I'm kind of glad I did. Later in life, I was leaving Milwaukee where I was doing martial arts. And the last week I was there, I lived with an old hippie friend of mine. Okay, he was much older than me. I was like 21, 20. I was like 20. I was 20. He was, 45, 50, having acid flashbacks. I mean, a serious hippie, okay? And he said, oh, before you go, you got to talk to my friend who's an astrologer. So we call her up, and this was back when a phone call was 30 cents a minute. He didn't have a lot of money. I had no money. So we're talking, and after 90 minutes, he's pulling me off the phone because he's paying for it, right? And she found out while we were talking. I was just amazed at this reading that I was driving home the next day, 1,500-mile drive, and she was right in the middle. And so she said, oh, you should come by, and you could spend the night, break up your trip. I'm like, wow. And my friend said, oh, she can go forever once she gets started. And so he came and kicked me off the phone because he didn't want to pay for forever. So the next day I get up early. I'm so excited. I jump in the car. I mean, I do that 750 miles in 7 hours or something. It was like vroom in my little Datsun. So I get there so excited. I'm thinking, oh, she's going to tell me about my chart. She's going to tell me about charts. So she sits down, she feeds me, she makes sure it's vegetarian because she found out she knows vegetarian. Then she took me, and she was taking her time with this. I'm like, I don't care about food. I want to know more about my chart, Then she takes me to her office. I'm like, finally, Then she pulls down an ephemeris, a table of houses, and she teaches me how to calculate a horoscope.
Very old school with no software. Good on her.
Yeah, with no software. She goes, I use software now, but until recently, this is how I used to do it. Because this was 1990, when a lot of people were doing hand still. So I'm like, going through my lessons, learning to calculate charts, thinking, okay, then can we look at my chart? And then it's dinner time and afternoon. She's like, you have a long drive tomorrow. You should get to bed. So I'm at bed, and she puts me in bed like 8 o'clock. I'm like, wow, she didn't look at my chart, She just taught me how to calculate chart and sent me on my way. And she made some hints, but I didn't pick up at the time in my chart about what I might do in life, And so she obviously saw that maybe I could do well with astrology, but she never said it exactly, She just said I had a lot of knowledge. I wasn't looking for a teacher. I was looking for students, and that's all she said.
Wow.
And then she taught me how to calculate the charts the next day, sent me on my way, and I'm excited. She gave me a course lesson. I'm reading it down the highway. I mean, these are wide open highways, and I was 20, so that's my excuse. And, so I get there, and it was a very difficult manual. It's like very cryptic. This planet's this house, this aspect equals this, put it together. No cookbook stuff, just really conceptual, hard stuff. And so I got home, I tried to calculate my sister's chart, really clumsy, threw the books in the closet. A year later, I'm getting my heart torn up with my first relationship going south.
Oh.
And I end up with her horoscope, of all things, on accident. And so, and a copy of my horoscope. That's a long story. So I end up with both our horoscopes on accident. It was accidentally sent to me, actually.
Oh,
from an astrologer she'd gone to, and she never even told me her age, this girl. So all of a sudden I got her horoscope. I found out she lied about her age and
oh
all
my,
this stuff. So I called my mom up and I'm broke, brokenhearted, financially broke, just lost my job, hadn't eaten literally, was picking herbs on the Sunset Highway in Hollywood and, Pacific Palisades, which is burning down right
yeah,
now.
yeah.
That's my old food supply,
Oh, wow.
to live. I'm like literally foraging. Luckily, it was the right time of the year to forage. And because I was too depressed and just sitting there studying astrology. And it helped me get out of this depression of this breakup that really affected me deeply. And then I really just said, wow, at the time I was doing natural healing and working as a naturopath. And I was like, none of that helped me right now, but astrology helped me. Forget that nonsense.
Wow.
I'm going to do astrology. And then I became an astrologer because of that. Then I had my books and I started really studying. I had no money, so I calculate charts by hand, going to the New Age bookstores in LA. They used to have fantastic New Age bookstores. And I would just sit there all day long reading the books,
Yeah.
and educating. And then from there, got back to the Bay Area where I lived before, and I just started going to groups, connecting with people, became a Western astrologer, studied, opened a practice 3 years later. First reading, terrible. I felt like I wasn't equipped to do a good job. And so after that, I studied harder and harder, but nothing was coming together for me. And it got to where if I looked at a chart, I got nausea. So I'm like, gosh, what am I going to do? I was sure I was going to be an astrologer. Now I can't even look at a chart without nausea. And I said, well, I'm just going to go to the ashram. So then I run off to the ashram. I had a feeling go there for 8 months. So I did. And when I was there, I had a dream to start studying Vedic astrology. That was like on my birthday. So that day I call up this bookstore that had like the one copy of Brihat Parashara in America.
Mm-hmm.
I ordered that and I get it. Actually, it came on my birthday. I ordered a couple days. I called my mom, borrowed her credit card, and ordered it. And because I didn't have her credit card or anything. And I get the book and I start studying. Then a friend of mine, a guy who becomes a good friend, shows up and says, I hear you do Western astrology. I've never had mine done, but I lived in India and studied Vedic astrology for 3 years. Will you read my chart? And I'm like, sure. I'll try. Last time, 3 months ago, I got nauseous, but I'll try. So I pull out his chart really quick before lunch one day and I rattle off a couple things in 5 minutes, but then we're forced to go to lunch because it's ashram life. It's very regulated,
Yeah.
We go to lunch and after lunch, he comes up, he goes, I was really amazed at what you said about my chart. And I called my mom and she's sending my whole Vedic astrology library and I have every English book published and a software. And I'm giving it all to you so you can really study this science because you'll do great at it.
Oh, isn't that
So
so affirming when life just comes into support where you're going?
A huge library. I mean, everything written in English up to that point. Classics, Beaver Rahman, 1 or 2 K and Rao books that had been written at that point, And so then every moment I was studying in that ashram and I wasn't doing some duty or meditating. And I came out a competent astrologer, 7 months later.
How fantastic.
I set up my practice. So it was really kind of fun, the journey, and the disappointment of thinking what am I going to do now? I guess I'll just go to the ashram and see what happens.
Yeah. But it led you where you needed to be. I love that.
Yeah, it led me to the perfect place. So it worked out really nice.
And dreams can be so powerful for giving us direction in the future. It was through a dream that I met
my husband. Vedic astrology. And I'm not a person who has regularly benefited from dreams, but that one was like, I said, okay. And I had Astrology of the Seers by Frawley.
Oh, yes.
And so I remember, I pulled that up and I looked at it and I remember it said Brihat Parashara and then I ordered the Brihat Parashara. And then I was probably reading Frawley's book while I was waiting for Brihat Parashara to show up.
His book is brilliant. I love that book.
It's a great book. It really opened so many doors to so many people.
Yeah, absolutely. But when you were learning Vedic astrology, were you practicing with the Siderial chart or did you?
I actually started with Siderial. I was very happy to use Sidereal. I made a lot of predictions with Sidereal. And I was meditating 25 hours a week in the ashram. And I was in a very good mental state.
Yeah.
And I was making predictions that when I got out of the ashram and they came true, I went and looked at the charts, tried to figure out how they came true.
Mm.
I have no idea how I made the predictions. I mean, I pulled them out of the ether. And like I'm talking, the guy wanted to know if he was going to become a monk. I said, no, he didn't want to, he didn't ask me that. I didn't like this guy. He was kind of bossy and I didn't really like him, but he asked me to his chart. I'm like, sure. And I look at his chart and I'm like, holy shit, he's actually going to become a full-fledged renunciate monk. I cannot believe it because I had issues with him, you know. I thought he was an egomaniac. I'm like, holy wow, he's a wow chart. So I met him. I said, I don't know if you're here to become a monk, but I think you're going to become a monk and you're gonna actually be approved to become a monk and start your monastic training right around the 27th through the 30th of January.
Wow.
He goes, oh, that's all I wanted to know. And then we said, okay, see ya. And then I left the ashram a few months later. I come back in February, beginning of February. If I went there for like a retreat for a weekend, and he comes up, because I just wanted to say on the 28th, just like you said, I got approved to become a monastic. And in this order, only a small percentage of people get approved, actually join the order. And it's a very severe process, actually, compared to you can just, I'm going to be a monk. You know, no, it's not like that. And then you have to go through a year of training to see if you even survive that training, if they even okay you after that. And and I got home, I looked, how did I make that prediction? No idea. So I was using Viva Ramon Ayanamsha at the time. Then I started having predictive crises when I started having clients asking more and more questions, you know.
Yeah.
And I started doubting the Ramana Ayanamsha, and I also played with Shuktasra Ayanamsha, that I found out that it really wasn't a kosher calculated Ayanamsha. And then I started reading K.N. Rao's book, that grounded me out, and I went to Lahiri for a long time.
Yeah.
But I also knew Lahiri, I learned that Lahiri astronomically wasn't sound.
Yeah.
And so then I realized that Lahiri also didn't think it was and had adjusted it later in life.
Really?
And the adjustment happened to match up with putting the galactic plane in the middle of Mula in the beginning of Ardra,
Right.
which is really significant because the Lord of the day when the sun enters Ardra Nakshatra is the Lord of clouds.
Of clouds, did you say?
Of clouds. Mm-hmm. And that the Lord of clouds governs the rainfall, was considered the most important Lord of the year. See, that when the Aries ingress happens, it's the day of the week for that is the king of the year. Right. The Taurus ingress is the minister of the year. So the first 6 ingresses all create these office bearers, but only one nakshatra creates one of these lords, and that's when the sun enters Ardra Nakshatra. At that point, Ardra is like Orion, you know? Mm-hmm. That's the Milky Way, which is kind of cloudy.
Yeah.
And when that happens, the sun is opposite the galactic center. So it's sun, earth, galactic center, all lined up. And that corrects that Lahiri Ayanamsha to the same value of the, as Lahiri would want it to, within half a minute of arc.
Right. Okay.
He said about 27 minutes. This corrects it by 26 minutes and like 36 point some seconds, if I remember right. So I used that for many years. A lot of astrologers who become famous now learned that Ayanamsha from me and still use it to this day. I consider it an improvement. I'm not the only one that thought of it. I met a guy in Germany who at the same time came up with, he was a Western astrologer. His name's Rafael Gil Brand. He's a really brilliant Spanish astrologer who moved to Germany. And we talked Ayanamshas. He had just recently, before I met him, been a Western astrologer that converted to Sidereal. Mm-hmm. Okay. And he was a very successful Western astrologer, used tropical zodiac. So we were talking Ayanamsha, and he also had put one of the things he was testing, he didn't settle on this Ayanamsha, but he was testing many things, was putting the galactic plane in the middle of Mula. Yeah. You know? And so he thought of that, and then I was like, wait a minute, that's awesome, because in the Muhurta books, it says the Lord of the Clouds, is in Ardra, and the middle of Mula is Ardra on the other side. So I was like, really, like, this was a huge revelation to me. So I jumped on that Ainamsha. It also lined up with some Mayan stuff, and I really used it for a very long time. But then in a few years later, 2004, so we're talking about 9 years after I started doing Vedic astrology, I just got this feeling to do tropical signs with sidereal nakshatras.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of came about because reading a lot of the old books, there was more evidence that the old astrologers before 600 BC used tropical.
Interesting.
In fact, and Varaha Mihira states it very clearly. He says, the first point of Aries, Mars Navamsha, Mars Trimsamsha, and Mars Drekana start at the vernal equinox. Mm-hmm. He also says in another book that Ashwini lines up with Aries. So there's actually two groups of people in India that use tropical rashis and tropical nakshatras because of this.
Yeah.
Now, I didn't know that until later on when they started contacting me, when they heard about me using tropical. So then that happened in 2004. I got that idea and I said, no way. I'm not going to go there. But it kept growing. And like a year later, beginning of 2005, because I had this thought when I was coming out of the bathroom. I'm taking a pee, I walk out, I'm in the door jam of the bathroom, right in the middle, said, tropical nakshatras, like with tropical rashis with sidereal nakshatras. Kind of makes sense. No, it don't. Okay. But then it keeps coming up. So in the beginning of 2005, I literally started testing every technique I knew, Gemini, all kinds of stuff. And every technique tested out more accurately with tropical. Mm-hmm. I also created a program where I emailed everyone I knew, where they would go and they would click on some things, and we calculated with sidereal, with tropical, with a random Ayanamsha, and with a whole crazy idea that was not random though, but it was not tropical and not sidereal, okay? And tropical tested out better in every test.
Right.
Like statistically tested out better. By leaps and bounds, no, but by a few percent. But every category tested out better. And I only had a database of a couple hundred people to do this. I'm actually thinking of rerunning these tests soon.
Yeah.
Getting them back online, because I think I still have the programs to run them, because now, of course, I can get several thousand people to do it, because there was no internet, no Facebook, no YouTube then.
Yeah.
That's something I want to possibly do this year sometime.
That sounds exciting. I mean, it makes sense to me that tropical, because tropical, based on we live on an earth that's governed by seasons, so if we're living the manifested life in the body here on the earth, then we are governed by the seasons. So it makes sense that when we're analyzing predictions and personalities and whatever, it would be corresponding to what governs life on the earth, which is the seasons. Yeah. But there's still a role for nakshatras and the constellations. Do you think that perhaps that's a bit more of a spiritual plane, because it's beyond the solar system?
I wouldn't call it spiritual exactly, but more spiritual. The Rashis are very, very spiritual. In astrology, sun is God, sun is Shiva, which is Lord. And like in Vastu, the corner of the house that is the Shiva corner is called Isha, which means Lord. Okay. And so it's like the sun is critical. It is the Godhead in astrology, we don't really go out of the solar system so much, and how I see it is that the way astrology works is how it looks up there is what's happening down here. So what's happening down here is we have our chakras, we have our third eye and our medulla up top. The third eye is the reflection of the medulla. So that's the Cancer and Leo signs.
Yeah.
And then we have our root chakra, which is the Capricorn and Aquarius signs. And then we have the sun, the energy in our body moving north and up and down the spine. And that's what yoga practitioners do. They work with that up and down motion of the spine, which is Shiva, which is the sun. And that's happening in real life. So see, the motion of the sun to the earth actually aligns to what's happening to our chakras. So if you consider the earth as the body, but it's with lined up with chakras, with Saturn signs going up to the sun and moon signs. And in the books, in the astrology books, the signs from Leo to Capricorn are the solar half.
Yeah.
They're the solar nadi. Mm-hmm. And the signs from Cancer to Aquarius backwards are the lunar nadis, is the lunar channel or the lunar half. And so there's all these things pointing to really questioning the sidereal. And so I just tested it. Mm-hmm. And I was invested in sidereal. At the time, I was writing a book a year. I was rapidly growing as a successful astrologer. I was going to ACFA, getting invited there. David Frawley would come up and say, wow, you're the most prolific author in Vedic astrology these days, because every year I was cranking out a huge, really amazing, really wonderful book, and it was big, well-researched, Sanskrit in there and everything. And then all of a sudden, I tested it and tropical tested out better, and I can't do sidereal anymore. It was either quit or do tropical. So I said, well, we'll starve for sure if I quit. So I'll do tropical and probably starve, I really thought everything was going to go away, and I'm getting ready to sell stuff on eBay to feed my 3-year-olds, And so at the time I was teaching classes with around 40 people in the classes, phone conference classes, then people were buying the audios from that. But I regularly have 40, 45 students in every course, and I was literally teaching 2 courses a week. So that was a huge part of my income.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, and then I do a free class. Everyone show up if you wanted to. And I give my reasons why I can't do sidereal anymore. And I just let it go and see what happens. And a few people left. Most people said, they tried it and they liked it better. And more people showed up than left. It was amazing how many people showed up in the next few years. And I was always interested in Vedic astrology, but I just could not embrace the Sidereal Zodiac. So it kind of actually worked in the long run just fine, for me. I have students who do sidereal. I don't have a problem with them doing sidereal. If they ask me a question about sidereal chart, I won't answer it. If they say, what do you think's going to happen? I won't look at the sidereal and tell them. If they ask me a technical question, I know it's sidereal, but I'm not making a prediction. I'll just answer the question technically. Yeah. So it's like, I'm not the guy who says, oh, yeah, I have to use this zodiac, I've learned a lot from going to different zodiacs and doing different zodiac experiences. And what I've really learned is that there's the way we are. Okay, there's the way we are. And then there's the way we think we are. And we're actually more invested. The average person, not the average person, most people, even very insightful, hardworking on themselves, self-help focused people, are more attached to who they think they are than really who they are. Especially when they're young and growing up and haven't encountered the harsh realities of, holy shit, this is what my life is really fucking like, you know?
Absolutely.
We've been there. We know that, we've had the reality check.
All too well.
But there's a point you think you're this way, and life shows you you're not that way. This is not what you are. And as I've gone through changes with this stuff, I had to grudgingly admit, yeah, that's actually more what I'm like, Right. And I'll tell you, I lost points from sidereal tropical, like I lost self-esteem points in my own eyes. And now what I'm working on now, here's the really interesting thing. That when I started the tropical astrology movement on accident, I wasn't trying to start a movement. I just said, hey, this is how I have to do it. Do what you want, That was 18 years ago in the beginning part of the year. And what I'm going to start teaching on YouTube or demonstrating on YouTube sometime in the next 4 days before the inauguration here is the Aditya Zodiac. It's not actually a zodiac. Zodiac means creatures of the zoo, right?
Yeah.
So the zodiac is a bunch of zoo creatures, including three
Aquarius,
humans.
the man, he's a zoo creature too.
So we're just zoo creatures down here, you know. We're just in there with the cows and everything else, you know, and the lions. So
The scales of
we're these.
Libra are an anomaly then, aren't they? But
No, no, it's a man in a bazaar with scales. It's
ah,
still a man. Yeah,
okay.
yeah. There's four human signs, and then Sagittarius is half human, half horse.
Yeah.
And Sagittarius is not even a centaur. He's a man on a horse, is with a bow. He's basically a man on the horse with the bow. And that has blended into the centaur myth because of the centaur myth of Greece.
Yeah.
So that kind of got blended. But no, see,
Wow.
he has two legs in the front and four in back. He's six-legged
Oh my
because
gosh.
front half the front half of Sagittarius has two legs and the back half has four legs.
Wow.
So yeah,
Okay.
anyway, so there's a lot of things about the signs that have gotten skewed, of
Mm.
course. Okay. And Capricorn's a crocodile originally,
Yeah.
not usually no. Okay, so anyway, um, so now it's the same Rahu coming along again, the same eclipse,
I
right?
was
The
going to
same
say you're in
eclipse
that
that got
Saros
me to do
series.
tropical
Mm.
is that same eclipse is on my birthday this year, March 29th.
Oh wow.
I have a my year chart for this year. My Varsha fall is a solar eclipse exactly on my sun
Ah. Isn't
in
that,
the eighth
I think
house
that
of the
Saros
chart.
series is to do with communication, isn't it?
It
I
has
was
a
reading Bernadette's book the other day
yeah.
about the Saros series. I was like,
Okay. Yeah, I was just starting to look into it because when I see an eclipse on my eighth house, I get very concerned. Last time it was in my seventh house.
uh-huh.
Okay. This time it's in my eighth house because the eclipse moves forward a few, like 10 degrees every year.
Yeah.
So, in the cycles, so people know every 18 years and 10 days, there's a cycle of an eclipse repeats itself for like 1600 years.
Yeah.
So the eclipse that's this March is the same eclipse cycle of 18 years ago when I went to tropical. And now I'm going to start showing the Aditya Zodiac. Okay. But it's not really the zodiac. The Adityas are the sun gods. So it's not the zoo. I mean, maybe we should call it a Gaudiac or something, you know, because it's about the solar gods, not about a bunch of earthly beings, you know. But the Aditya Zodiac gives us a whole nother level of symbology to
Mm.
look at the signs.
Wow. And
And it's
where
really
did you find this?
remarkable.
I've never heard of it before.
Okay, it's only found in the Puranas, and I believe it's the original symbology used in India before the Greeks probably showed up because
Oh.
you
Mm.
know like there's terms in Vedic astrology that are not like there's Sunafa yoga and Anafa yoga. Sunafa and Anafa are Greek words. They're not Sanskrit words,
Ah.
you know? And so we see signs of Greek stuff going on, you know? Um, so the original symbology, I think, is these Adityas. Now, what's cool about these
Ah.
Adityas, they come with six beings. They have a Rishi, a Rakshasa, and these other beings that they travel with. So you get seven symbols for every sign that's all connected to the whole Hindu mythology.
So it gives so much more depth then to what the
It gives
straightforward
some
understanding is.
remarkable things. It gives some remarkable things. Okay, like for instance, the seventh Aditya is Twashta, who's the divine carpenter. Okay, now his reach and the seventh Aditya correlates. um, the seventh Aditya correlates to. Let me make sure I don't do it the backwards way here. To tropical Virgo. Okay. All right. So when I start teaching, showing these examples on YouTube, I won't have Virgo or any stuff. I'll just have a chart with the ditches in it. We're just gonna get away from the zoo and go to the Gaudiac. Okay. So and so the seventh Aditya is Rishi, is Jamad Agni. Now, Jamad Agni is the father of Parashurama, who's the avatar connected to Venus. Okay? And the Rishi is the law. They're the lawgivers. They're the ones that say, this is how we live on earth according to God's will. Okay? So, Jamad Agni had a wife, and she was out by the river, and a Gandharva landed by, and she got fluttery because he was so handsome.
As you do.
Her husband, because he's so enlightened, knew she had these feelings. So he went to his sons, his older sons. He said, your mother had impure thoughts. Go kill her. And they said, no way, we're not killing their mom. So then he went to Parashurama, and he said, your mother had impure thoughts, and your brothers didn't obey me. Go kill them. He went and killed them. And then he came back and said, I killed all three of them. And his father said, good, I'm really proud of you. You're a good son. Ask me anything you wish and I will grant it. He goes, I want my mom and brothers to come back to life.
Perfect.
With no memory of anything that happens. He said, your wish is granted.
Oh, clever.
Okay. So the law of the seventh Adicha, which is tropical Virgo, is the paternal law, the law of the father. So if you see people with heavy, nasty stuff in this Aditya, you know their father it was his rules, his laws, very harsh. For instance, Trump, he's born right at the end of a sign. Couple seconds, he goes to Virgo.
Yeah.
He's Virgo. When you read his family history of his father, he's a Virgo Lagna. I just worked on that recently. He's not a Leo Lagna. He's a Virgo
They've got
Lagna.
the wrong birth time for him, you think?
Well, his time, if you just adjust it by 5 seconds, it goes to the next Lagna.
Right.
So it needs to be, when you see it right on the end, you have to rectify it.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
I'm so relieved to hear this because my son has 29 degrees Leo rising. And I've always been, what if it's different? What if it's, but he hasn't had that experience with his father.
Yeah.
So I know he's definitely a Leo. Thank you.
And you'll see people, like one person I know has really all their troubled planets are in this Aditya, okay? We're talking 3 or 4 shamed planets, which is the most difficult planet. Their father was a ruthless Bible thumper who would whip the kids with a belt for not even dinner. And he said when the children had no life outside what their father allowed. And you'll find this. Now, then I have a client who has lots of nice planets in her 7th house. And like Jupiter Moon, which is a nice yoga, right? She became a dentist. Her great-grandfather, her grandfather, her dad were all dentists. And she's the first female dentist. Paternal law. She's following the dictates of the father, but this is something she's good at. Yeah. She enjoys, and it's how she lives. So we have a very significant paternal something going on. Paternal law is critical. Here's the paternal law. We're dentists. This is the rule, in the family. And she continued that. And I asked, any of your other siblings dentists? She's like, no. And I'm thinking, then they must have something else going on in that sign, if anything, So you're like, wow, these people, when they've got this 7th Aditya loaded up or something's critical in there, paternal law somehow is important. I have Ketu there. I had a very rigid and harsh father. He had a terrible Libra, and he had an extremely rigid and harsh Nasi father. And so we can see this paternal lineage of stuff,
But with Ketu there, is there a letting go of that lineage?
Exactly. Yeah, my kids are the biggest trouble ever, because see, when I was their age, I had lots of terrible stuff happen to me, lots of hardships. Life is hard in your early 20s, right? My mom, my dad never knew about it. They didn't get any wrinkles over it.
Mm.
My kids won't stop talking to us about everything. So every day it's like, oh my God, right? It's like, I wish we hadn't established this wonderful communication. I wish I'd scared you away. So I wouldn't get these nerve-wracking phone calls about
Yeah.
how depressed and hard your life is. You're supposed to talk to your friends about this or go cry in a closet like I did. Be alone.
I know.
So
I
no,
know.
I have not managed to scare my kids away with harsh paternal laws.
That's Cato at work, so he's doing you a favor,
Had my
perhaps.
chance. You know?
That's great. Oh, I love it. So Ernst, you're releasing this on YouTube, or do people where
Well,
do
what
people
I'm going
go
to
to
start
do this?
doing like a series of videos based on the Trump cabinet, looking at Trump members with the Aditya Zodiac
Fabulous.
and the people he appoints and so on and so on. And then I want to look at the inauguration chart and some other event charts and kind of pull it all together with the Adityas to give people an exposure to this, you know, this old Hindu basically zodiac.
Oh, this is exciting and so pertinent too. I'll put a link down the bottom of the video for people to go to your YouTube channel so they
Oh,
can follow along. That'd be
yeah. I
crazy.
hope to get the first video done the next week because I want to do something before the inauguration, and
Yeah.
then I want to try to do the inauguration video on the inauguration day after I find the exact minute it starts in case the
Yeah.
minute effect, in case it's delayed, who knows? Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
I'm not into politics at all. I just thought it would be fun to do it on this. I don't know any of these people. I've never voted in my life. I'm a Brahmin, not a Kshatriya. Leave it up to God and the people who want to worry about that stuff.
Yep,
So I'm
absolutely.
not into any of this stuff. I just thought, hey, everyone else is, so I might as well do the Adityas over these guys.
Yeah,
And because it's really been so revealing to look at like Trump's chart and go, oh my gosh, look at what the Adityas are spelling out here.
I am.
Wow.
I'm intrigued to know. I can't wait.
And I mostly use Aditya Zodiac now. The Aditya symbology, I'm using that more and more in my daily astrology. That and the Gemini is my favorite stuff now.
So are
And that's
you,
the really true old stuff from India.
yeah, yeah, before it was corrupted. Well, I'm not saying that in
I'm
the,
going to say corrupted. I think the signs of the zodiac are fantastic, but we don't want to lose that old stuff either. We want to use both. It's just now the new toy is, you know.
you're always finding new toys, which I think is
Oh, I
fantastic.
know. Yeah.
But we're actually had an agenda to talk about medical astrology today. So
Maybe we should cut into two videos.
yeah,
We
we could
already
do
made
that. Would
about
you
the
like?
zodiac.
Yeah,
Yeah, let's do two.
yeah. Okay.